Very, very sobering news we've been digesting. Well, joining us now to give us her thoughts is the royal commentator Emily Andrews. Emily, as Sarah was just saying, it's been an extraordinary few weeks for the royal family on the health front. Obviously, we had the announcement of Kate's abdominal surgery and the fact that she would be out of action and recuperating for many months. Then we had the news of Sarah Ferguson, that she has had breast cancer and now has skin cancer. And now this news about the King that some sort of cancer was discovered whilst he was having treatment for his prostate.
Yes, I mean, clearly it's a very difficult time for the royal family. I mean, traditionally, at this time of the year, the royal family is the news is very quiet. They don't tend to do many engagements in January. And of course, Charles and Camilla were up in Birk Hall in Scotland having some private time. And indeed, the King was still doing his state business and his official paperwork. But this, I think the health, as you have just outlined, Daisy, the health woes of particularly the two most senior members of the royal family, Kate and the King, really kind of focus the mind on we have another aging monarch. We had, our longest serving monarch, Queen Elizabeth, who died at the age of 96. But, the King, there was a new start, Carolean era, breath of fresh air, etc., etc. Any serious health worries like this inevitably draws attention to his age. He's going to be 75 this year. And also the fact that we have now got a very slimmed down monarchy. When we sort of think about what Princess Anne said at the beginning of last year, she gave an interview to a Canadian broadcaster, because obviously, Charles is head of state for Canada as well. And she was asked about this kind of concept of a slimmed down monarchy. And she kind of, rather in that brilliant sort of Princess Anne way, rather sort of poo-pooed it and said, well, of course, that was when we had a lot more working members of the royal family. I mean, today we really only have Princess Anne, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Edward and Sophie. We have the Prince and Princess of Wales. But as we've seen, Kate and William have been out of action for all of this month. And the King and Queen Camilla.
And talking of Camilla, Emily, obviously for the last few weeks, we saw Queen Camilla do a huge number of duties. She really was out and about flying the royal flag. But of course, many people thought that was going to be a short-term solution and that she would be able to slightly go back to normal. Now that we know the King is going to be incapacitated for a considerably longer period of time, presumably we will get used to seeing a lot more of Camilla, but she will be torn of wanting to be by her husband's side.
Well, I think it's been interesting that kind of, it's not just kind of William leading the way. I mean, I know a lot has been made about the fact that he stepped back from his public engagements and that he wanted to put his young family first, as well as his wife. But Camilla also, when Charles was in hospital, I think went sometimes 3 or 4 times a day to visit him, going to and from Clarence House, their London residence. So yes, she will be balancing kind of her, her own work and her own public engagements, literally sort of standing alongside her husband. I mean, we know that King Charles is going to have outpatient treatment at the moment. He doesn't have to, at the moment, the palace say, he doesn't have to go into hospital for treatment. But I think, perhaps it's too soon to sort of raise this issue, Daisy, but we are in the 21st century where a lot of European monarchs are now handing over to their heirs. We've obviously just seen the Queen of Denmark stand down for her son, Prince, now King Frederick. We've seen, the disgraced King of Spain, sure, but hand over to his son now, and King Philippe. And I do wonder whether in this country we've had, obviously, spearheaded by Queen Elizabeth, who famously said that she would never abdicate, never stand down. And Charles has always seemed as if he would do exactly the same thing. I know he's been the longest heir in waiting since he was made, he was Prince of Wales, I think, at age 4. But I do wonder whether palace officials and courtiers now have to seriously start thinking about, contingency planning.
Well, and Sarah Houston and I were discussing that, and talking about how a regency would work if there were such a thing, were to happen, and reminding each other and our viewers that actually a regency doesn't have to be a permanent state of affairs. You can have a temporary regency where William would take over just until his father was back on his feet, and it can then go back. So it doesn't have to be an abdication as such.
No, absolutely. I mean, certainly when we were thinking about Queen Elizabeth and her health problems, and those of us like, us three who were regularly reporting on the royals, we knew that there was a lot more being, happening behind the scenes than perhaps we could say publicly. The Buckingham Palace were considering a whole range of kind of Regency light and soft, this and that. But I think what's interesting is that we very much had a briefing. I think the choreography of events today, where it's been, it was sort of briefed to the Sunday papers, or some of the Sunday papers, that William would be back working this week. Then all of the daily reporters today were briefed that yes, William would be back this week, and that he would hold a investiture at Windsor Castle, and he would also have an engagement on Wednesday night. The Heir ambulance close to his heart. So it's very much like, the Heir is back. And then we got the news, obviously, that the King has cancer. And I think that was clearly, carefully choreographed between those two palaces, Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace, to make sure that, there was speculation didn't kind of go rife about regencies and abdication, and try and dampen down any fears that Charles was going to be majorly incapacitated. But I think it also shows the capacity of both those palaces to also work together. In the past, there has been friction between Charles and William. Perhaps inevitably there's always going to be friction between a monarch and his or her heir, but at the moment it shows that they're working together very closely, and I'm sure that William will be picking up things for his father, like indeed he is this investiture at Windsor Castle on Wednesday.
And of course we've had the news that Prince Harry is coming over to see his father.
Indeed, released by, we are told, Harry's side. I mean, I have to say, I have to say, it did make me rather raise an eyebrow, because I've always tried to be quite fair on. I mean, I really like Harry still, but the fact that he's allowing his people to release the fact that he's coming over to the UK, Harry, enough. It's not always about you. You don't have to tell us that. There have been so many times in the past where Harry has just said nothing. For instance, over, the Princess of Wales hospitalisation, which I thought was totally fair enough, by the way. I thought it was totally fair that he didn't say anything publicly, whatever he did or didn't do privately. But the fact that he allowed his PR people to say, yes, I'm coming over straight to the UK, I just thought, come on, Harry.
Sympathetic, Emily. Although maybe Sarah Houston and I were being, we're hoping for the best and hoping that this could be the beginning of some bridges being built, and that maybe Harry will see that his brother is really going through it with a sick wife and a sick father, and maybe this will be the beginning of something.
Well, yes, I mean, let's all hope so, because that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? But I do feel that if he really does want that, then he should not have briefed his movements to the media. He shouldn't say that I'm coming to the UK. He should have just done it privately. Now, you can perhaps say from his point of view, well, if he's taking a commercial flight, if he's papped, if he's noticed by the passengers on the plane, if a member of the air crew, picks up the phone to a friendly newspaper, then isn't it better to get ahead of that? But I would say no, because the whole issue, particularly between him and his brother, and to a large extent his father, has been trust. Harry has, quite understandably, some may say, had his say, said a whole barrage of things against particularly his brother, his stepmother, his father, the royal institution. If he really does want peace, and he really does want to make things up with his family, or just to try and kind of just have a period of calm, then I don't think he should be briefing, I'm immediately going to see my father, because it appears once again as if he's trying to do it for his own personal PR gain.
Yeah, well, I tell you, somebody whose personal PR has got an awful lot better in the last year or so has been Queen Camilla. And as you said already, Emily, we've seen her really, really by his side during that short hospital stay. Obviously, she will be at his side now. But it is extraordinary how the public do seem to have forgiven and forgotten the fact that they used to not like her very much at all. And she's growing in popularity. And I was just seeing that one of the papers was reporting that Camilla has been urging Charles to slow down, particularly before his mini procedure that he's just had, because we know, Emily, that he is a workaholic. Many people around him say he's frequently goes back to work, goes back to his desk after dinner. And Harry said in his book that you'd walk into Charles's study at midnight to find him literally asleep, face down on some government documents, because he does work very hard. He pushes himself very hard.
Yes, yes, he does. He's always been a workaholic. And I have to say, at the age of nearly 75, I kind of doff my metaphorical cap to him. He takes his job incredibly seriously. He reads everything. He's incredibly well read. He is very erudite. He's very learned in a number of areas, not just politics, but religion, music, art, world affairs, architecture, Transylvania. I mean, the list goes on. But he takes his job very, very seriously. And I know from those of us that have been lucky enough to meet him and chat to him, he will be very sad, I think, that his health issues, and he's going on the advice of his doctor, his health issues will mean that he can't meet the general public and do public duties, because he gets a lot of energy from the people he meets. He gets energy from the crowds. He gets energy from all the experts he meets, the charities events he goes to. And so obviously he still has to have, do his official state business, but hopefully he will be back out in public again very soon.
And of course, we know that he takes his personal health and his diet, his exercise regime incredibly seriously. He famously doesn't have lunch because he wants to keep his weight at exactly 11 stone 5. He has 2 days a week where he has no dairy and no meat. He has sort of the same eggy breakfast every morning. This is a man of strict regime and routine. Camilla frequently saying that he always go for a very long, very fast walk every lunchtime instead of eating, doing his exercises, those exercises that were created by the Royal Canadian Air Force. This is a man who takes his health seriously.
Yes, absolutely. And, he's very, very fit for a man of his age. But I think, sort of going back to what you said earlier about the Princess of Wales, I mean, which is, her abdominal operation was non-cancerous, but with the news about Sarah Ferguson with breast cancer and then skin cancer, I mean, cancer does affect a huge swathe of the British population in various different forms. And it's important to stress again that the Buckingham Palace have deliberately not said what cancer he's suffering from. They've said it's not prostate cancer, but they don't want to say exactly what cancer, so presumably to stop us all speculating about prognosis and timelines and things like that, which I think is fair enough, because it's a very difficult line to tread. I think when you're the head of state, yes, your health is public property, but I think all of us would sort of, feel that surely Charles is surely he should have some privacy as well.
Yeah.
And also poor Camilla being asked every time now, wherever she goes now, how's your husband? How's your husband? She's got to come up with I'm sure she will. She's fantastic. She will come up with a form of words. He's fine, thank you very much. But to have all that in the public as public property is tricky.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. But I suppose it is something that the King has been getting used to his entire life in one form or another. Emily Andrews, thank you so much for talking to us on talkTV. I'm sure we will be talking to you a lot more over the coming few days. I was just reminded, one of the health stories that I remember about Charles was about when he was 8 years old, he had his tonsils taken out. And apparently he was so proud of them that he carried them around in a glass jar for many, many months, according to his nanny, I think. So maybe actually being quite public about his health, it goes back to when he was 8 years old.
But as you were just discussing, he has been very, very fit up until this point. And any hospital treatment he's had to have really in the past has tended to involve his sporting pursuits.
Yes,
playing polo
accidents.
Breaking an arm. He got an injured larynx when he got a polo ball in the larynx. He had a hernia that he had received treatment for. That was because of some overzealous gardening in the grounds of Highgrove.
Yes, so these have been quite self-inflicted injuries.
Yes, and I think this will have come as a big shock. Yeah. The day after World Cancer Day, yesterday, and actually on Friday, Camilla was visiting a Maggie's Cancer Care Centre, and we're told that she knew the diagnosis at that point. She decided to go ahead with that visit, but it will have taken on an added poignancy, I think.
It certainly will. And Peter, I think Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, has been sending good wishes to the King as well. So...
yes, he has a range of political figures, but the Speaker, of course, has a very important constitutional role, not just in terms of Speaker of the House of Commons, but where, I mean, Emily Andrews was talking there about if there was infirmity, the Speaker would have a role within that, as well as with other figures with it politically, judicially and so on. But yes, unsurprisingly, we've had all sorts of political figures, an outpouring really of good wishes. The Liberal Democrat leader, Davey, as well, has tweeted in all of this, and so many MPs on my Twitter timeline just saying we just wish him well, and he's an amazing public servant and our King, and we want him to get better.
And Sarah, very briefly, do we have any idea when Harry's landing?
No, we're told he's travelling in the coming days, although
Right.
I think it's perhaps likely that he will be travelling this evening from California, and obviously the time difference means that he perhaps would be here tomorrow if that is the case, but coming on his own as well, we understand.
Right, so we were wondering whether he would be bringing the children or even Meghan, Archie and Lilibet, but no. Well, obviously, Peter and Sarah, thank you so much for guiding us through that breaking news, and thank you for joining us as well for this special. Up next is Prime Time with Rosanna.